Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up on our news, motorists should brace themselves for another possible hike at the gas pump. Plus, the financial secretary weighs in on the cost of fuel. And it's Monday, Thursday, a major part of Holy Week. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Kindino Knowles. Motorists could see gas prices as high as $8 per gallon. The word coming from the Vice President of the Petroleum Retailers Association. He tells our Megan Shepherd that despite the possibility of the increase, talks with the government continue.
As global gas prices fall, Bahamian motorists are seeing the opposite with local gas prices climbing. Vice President of the Bahamas Petroleum Retailers Association, Vasco Bastian, asked to explain why.
Oil is bought on the futures market. So even though you might see a decline today, that oil might have been bought 2-3 weeks ago. And so we have to service that. Usually when the inventory at a certain level, then you could tell that the oil price or gas price would change. But as of it stands now, I believe if it continues to trend the way it's trending, there's the possibility, and that's the key word here, possibility that it might go up. There's no guarantee. I'm not guaranteeing anything. I'm just saying there is that possibility. I am hopeful that it doesn't get to that number of $8.
The association and government are in talks on a lot of industry issues. Bastian not saying much about those talks, other than he's optimistic.
We felt rejuvenated. We felt hopeful that our concerns for many, many years was actually being acknowledged. The problem with this industry is for so many years, for more than 10, 15 years, that we've been asking and trying to get some assistance and some guidance and to let our issues be known. And yesterday, the reason why I'm hopeful is because that the leadership of this country saw fit to entertain us and to sit with us and to hear our cries and hear our concerns.
And to the rumors of a possible gas station strike, he said this.
We will be open for business. We encourage motorists and the driving public to go to the service station of your choice, be it Esso, Shell, or Rubus. Go and fill up this weekend, fill up next week, and go and hail a family or a friend so we can keep the economy going. You can keep gas station operators and pump attendants and everybody working.
On top of rising oil prices, station owners are also now contending with rising crime.
A couple of weeks ago, you know that service stations were targeted. Because reason being, we also are one of the few businesses, or one of the only businesses that are open 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so crimes of opportunity happen all the time, and this happened to be crimes of opportunity were occurring at several different gas stations. But I think working along with the police now, it's basically under control, and we welcome the partnership with the police as well, and we welcome people to come back to the service stations at night if they want to.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepherd.
And while the Vice President of the Petroleum Retailers Association, who you just heard from just in that report, was tight-lipped on the petroleum dealers meeting with the Prime Minister, Financial Secretary Simon Wilson giving some insight today, admitting to reporters at the weekly meeting at the Office of the Prime Minister that skyrocketing fuel costs are a major challenge requiring a balancing act.
Maybe the government. I think everything's on the table. There's no easy solution, and that's one of the issues that were raised by retailers yesterday in terms of some type of tax relief. It's a fixed margin. So what has happened is if you look as fuel prices increase, their operating margin has now gone down in some cases to less than 10%, their gross margin. All right, so they have employees, they have overhead and so forth. So everything's on the table.
Now, Wilson says he hopes to soon offer a solution for dealers that also benefits consumers based off a number of suggestions already received.
Maybe the government should reconsider the issue of margins. The other issue put forward was the base for business license, which is a little technical issue. The retailers have a concessionary business license rate, but the base is inflated when prices are high. So prices are high not because of their own making, but it gives the impression that their revenues are high. But their true revenue is really tied to the 54 cents they get.
Meantime, VAT collection and revenue appears to be on the rise. Berthenia McDermott reports tonight on the country's fiscal report for February 2022.
For January and February, value-added tax collections increased by $165.5 million, or 28.5%, when compared to January and February of 2020, according to Financial Secretary Simon Wilson. This despite the rate of VAT decreasing from 12% to 10% across the board on January 1st.
January, February 2020, total VAT collectors was $165.5 million. So even though we have the reduction in the VAT rate from 12% to 10%, we experienced a 47.1 million or 28.5% increase in VAT collections.
Wilton, however, attributed the increase in collections to an economy on the rebound, among other things.
Some of that is because of the increase in economic activity because of the open economy. Some of that is because of our revenue administration efforts, and some of that is because of a lower VAT rate has encouraged more consumption.
The financial secretary also revealing that revenue receipts totaled $197.4 million. Tax collections totaled $178.7 million. A breakdown of that figure shows $85.8 million in VAT receipts, $38.6 million in international trade and transaction taxes, and $30.4 million in other taxes and goods on services, and $17.2 million in property tax. Meanwhile, expenditure contracted by 4.4% in February when compared to January 2022.
The big driver of the increase of expenditure was paying prior year bills as we try to catch up with the rest. As a result of these activities, the deficit of $33.1 million was realized for the month of February, which is approximately 52% lower than the same period for the prior year.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthenia McDermott.
And now to another story we've been following, the age of consent. A group of advocates pushing for a statutory definition as part of the Sexual Offences Amendment Act to draw a clear line between what is considered rape. Christina Dragovich reports.
We've seen from all of the public conversation over the past week, we're not very clear on what consent is. We don't need to be looking in multiple places to find a definition. We need it to be in the act itself.
Equality Bahamas Director Alicia Wallace says the Strike 5 campaign wants the Sexual Offences Amendment Act changed and updated to better protect victims of sexual violence. According to Equality Bahamas, marital rape must be criminalized and it must be called rape.
We really need legal reform in a lot of different areas, but we also need to focus on implementation. So it's one thing to enact new laws and to make amendments to bills, but we also need to look at how they're being implemented.
Denise Major, the director of the Bahamas Sexual Health and Rights Association, says she works to educate parents and children on sexual and reproductive health and rights. She supports a review of the laws as it pertains to the age of consent.
At 16, legally, the young people don't have to go to school by law at 16. But you're telling me I can't have sex. Mm-hmm. So amendments need to be made. Policy changes need to be made.
A major issue is the lack of access to health services as a young person.
What we're saying is, yes, I can consent to sex. I can't legally access health care. I can't go and get tested without an adult. If I get pregnant or I'm living on my own or my parent is absent, I am dependent on this parent who doesn't care about me to access these services, and just makes it more difficult for these children or these young adults.
To learn more about Strike 5, visit tiny.cc/strike5IVE. Reporting for Our News, I'm Christina Dragovich.
All right, you can expect mostly cloudy conditions with a 50% chance of rain. Greg, he's in the Weather Center with your first look. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks, Candina, and welcome everybody for our first look at weather on this humid Thursday evening. Partly cloudy skies outside our studios right now. We did have a couple of isolated showers earlier. We still have a few lurking out there, as well as some thunderstorms just to the west of us. 78 is our current temperature. East-southeast winds at 12 miles per hour, and your feels like temperature near the 80-degree mark. Satellite view. Quiet across most of the islands. We did have a couple of isolated thunderstorms popping up just to the south of Andros and across the Inagua and as well as the Meguan area. Showers to the north of Grand Bahama will stay to the north, and impulse in the mid to upper levels will be swinging across Florida. That will trigger a few more showers across the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, why pediatricians are breathing a sigh of relief. And Bahamian star athlete Jonquel Jones says she has not given up her citizenship. And find out why the robust Easter rebound at Lynden Pindling International Airport has officials happy. That's coming up when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamik.
Arrivals and departures are up significantly this Easter holiday. It's traditionally one of the busiest seasons for Lynden Pindling International Airport. Now, Director of Airport Operations Jonathan Hanna telling our Jasmine Brown that the rebound comes following a 2-year decline caused by COVID-19.
Officials here at LPIA say the Easter holidays are expected to be one of the busiest, as thousands of arrivals and departures are estimated on a daily basis.
So in terms of passenger numbers, just looking at the past few weekends with spring break, it's not uncommon to see at least 5,000 arrivals and 5,000 U.S. departures. We tend to segregate that from our other international traffic because we have a dedicated U.S. terminal, but it's not uncommon to see that those types of numbers at any given point in time. And domestically, you can have anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 passengers. So you're talking 12,000 passengers on any given day. In terms of traffic, a lot of persons like to travel around that Easter, and spring break tends to bleed right into Easter for travel.
That means NAD saw 70% of its 2019 traffic return at the end of March. The Bahamas saw a historic 7.25 million foreign visitor arrivals in 2019. The following year, there were only 1.79 million total foreign visitors when global travel came to a standstill and the tourism sector contracted by nearly 80%. 2020
is a year that the aviation industry at large would like to forget. We've wiped it completely free from our recent memory. But this year, we're really excited.
Hannah says when it comes to domestic travel, there has also been an uptick this year from 60% of 2019 traffic in January to 70% last month. He says the government's relaxation of testing requirements for family island travel is helping to boost those figures.
So we're seeing positive signs or trends in our domestic travel as well.
While the numbers are promising for the industry, Hannah says Russia's war with Ukraine has switched the outlook to cautious optimism. He also says if airline bookings continue at their current pace, the local industry could return to pre-pandemic levels by next year. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Thanks, Jasmine. Bahamian basketball star and WNBA MVP Jonquel Jones setting the record straight tonight over speculations about her citizenship. Our Sasha Lightbourne is on the story.
Bahamian basketball star Jonquel Jones recently came home for a bit of sun, sand, and sea. It was the first time she had been home in a long time, but was necessary because she had to get her U.S. visa renewed. Before coming home, she was in Russia playing for the national Bosnian team, as she regularly does during the WNBA off-season. And she wanted to clear the air about her citizenship.
I have not given up my Bahamian citizenship. I am still a Bahamian, born, bred, good at, and I think go.
Jones explained that playing for the national Bosnian team puts her in a different financial bracket than many others.
In terms of getting a dual citizenship and playing for Bosnia, I did that because it afforded me a different opportunity in terms of making more money overseas. So I don't know, a lot of people probably don't know, but our team in Russia is essentially a WNBA All-Star team. So overseas teams have a rule where you can only have 2 Westerners. Now, United States players, Bahamian players, anybody from this side of the world is considered a Westerner. And so in order for me to be on that team and make the kind of money that I would want to be making, I had to get a European passport so that I could be on the team, and the team could have 2 other Westerners.
And what about playing on a Bahamian national women's team at the Olympic level?
There's no way we shouldn't at least be in contentions for like a bronze medal game. You know, like we have the talent, but I think the main thing is just the investment from the government. I think if we were allowed to do what Japan was able to do, their team had been playing together for years. They came up through the system. They had a national team coach that was invested. They had the funds to be able to work on their bodies and train, and just feel like the government was behind them.
Reporting for our news, I'm Sasha Lightborn.
And local pediatricians breathing a sigh of relief with low COVID-19 numbers in the country. Christina Dragovich tells us why.
Pediatric consultant Dr. Jashawn Saunders says COVID protocols are still in effect at doctors' offices around the country, but the low case numbers are pleasing.
We're breathing. It's a sigh of relief, but we're still cautious. We're still cautious because, as we know, because of the changes, it could happen again, but so far everything looks good.
During the height of the pandemic, COVID infections among children were concerning, as they were among the populations of individuals who were not yet eligible for vaccination against the virus in the Bahamas. Now, Dr. Saunders says the climate is a lot better.
Our hospitalizations are down for COVID in children, our admissions are down for COVID in children, and even the patients that are presenting to our offices, we are not seeing a significant number of COVID cases, so we're happy for that.
Locally, the COVID-19 vaccine is only available for children ages 12 and up. And Dr. Saunders says there's still no word from the Ministry of Health and Wellness on when the vaccine will be available for younger children.
Surprisingly, no update on the vaccine, so we are glad, though, that the pandemic seems to be behind us and that COVID is slowly disappearing. Now, we still have a lot of new variants that are on the horizon, so we have to be careful with that.
According to the United States Centers for Disease Control, it is still crucial for pregnant women, family members, and caregivers of infants and young children to get vaccinated against COVID-19 to protect those who are still not yet eligible for vaccination. Reporting for our news, I'm Christina Dragovich.
Our second look at weather with Greg Thompson is on the way, and our Marcellus Hall has an update on Carifta. All of that and more when our news returns.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamir.
This is our news. Welcome back. President of the Bahamas Lawn Tennis Association, Perry Newton Jr., says coaches selected for recent national team trips had the required qualifications and in some cases performed well. Jared Higgs, who has been following this story for us, tells us his comments come after criticism from a group of parents.
Some of the comments made by the parents in a press conference on Monday were defamatory in its nature, as they belittled the coaches who served as the Bahamas Lawn Tennis Association's national team coaches.
Newton Jr. fired back at the concerned parents who held a press conference on Monday, accusing the BLTA of selecting coaches for a national team trip who they say weren't coaching high-performance players. Newton Jr. says all the coaches had the minimum level 1 certification from the ITF and were approved by the ITF.
The tax to the coaches' competency or suitability is based on opinion and preference. We are not trying to create a classist system where coaches are restricted from serving if they qualify. A more experienced coach does not necessarily equate to better results.
Newton Jr. says while some of the coaches were new to the national stage, they performed well, including one newcomer who led a team to the quarterfinals.
So this doesn't indicate that the coaches were incompetent. This shows that they prepared their team and they were ready to play on each day.
That group of parents also took issue with what they say was a lack of communication by the BLTA and the coaching team prior to travel. Newton Jr. says those meetings were held.
The parents wanted to be the ones to select the coaches, and because the association did not acquiesce to their demands, we are witnessing the attacks on the coaches in the media, despite the positive results.
The BLTA president says an ITF Regional Level 2 coaching course will be held in the Bahamas. The Level 2 license focuses on instructing advanced players. Reporting for Our News, I am Jared Higgs.
Thanks, Jared. Our Griffith swim team confident headed to Barbados. Meanwhile, local basketball finals start tonight at AF Adderley. Marcellus Hall is up now with sports.
Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. I'll tell you what, as the holiday weekend approaches, it seems as if all the activity will be in different places. We know our Griffith track and field team currently already in Jamaica, ready to begin their track and field quest this weekend. We'll see how that turns out. Meanwhile, our Griffith swim team is also gearing up for competition. They're the defending champions, and their head coach is feeling pretty confident. Let's take a look. Our Griffith swim team on the way to Bermuda, set for the Griffith Swim Championships there, which will be held over the Easter holiday weekend. Now, the Bahamas are the defending champions, which has head coach Tarana McPhee feeling pretty confident.
This is a very strong team. I've been around the Griffith team for a while now, and I can honestly say this is one of the strongest teams we've had from top to bottom. We look very good. The senior category is led by our team captains, Delaney Mizell, Errol Thompson, Jake Thompson, and Zaylee Elizabeth Thompson. So we have a very strong team, like I said, from top to bottom, and we should feature pretty well.
Meanwhile, Jonquel Jones has left home now after a brief visit to the shores of the Bahamas. Jonquel, who granted an exclusive interview to our Sasha Lightman, talked about a lot of different things, including what's coming up for this season and her goals in the WNBA.
I definitely feel like women's basketball is moving in the right direction. The only thing that's a little bit worrisome, I would say, about people coming into the WNBA is just that the spots are so limited, and so the majority of those people that are drafted, they're really fighting really hard to make a roster spot, and so I think our league expanding and bringing more teams into the fold will be very good for women's basketball, because there's so many talented players that don't make rosters and that are out there, playing overseas, that are doing a really good job but don't get their shot in the WNBA. But ultimately, I think women's basketball is definitely growing. You watch the women's Final Four, you see the stands sold out. You see the representation there, and the generation that's coming up, they're outspoken, they use their platforms, and so I think ultimately it's just going to help the game.
All right. Meanwhile, local basketball news as well. The New Province Basketball Association will start its Division I championship this evening. It'll feature the Rockets, the discount distributors Rockets, taking on the Giants. Should be a pretty good matchup. Game time, 8:30 tonight at the AF Adderley Gym. And that's your look at sports here on this Thursday. Have a great and safe weekend, everyone. We'll be, of course, bringing you all the details from track and field beginning on Saturday. Stay tuned. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Marcellus. Still to come, our Greg Thompson is all set to fill us in with the details of the weather over the holiday weekend. And what does Maundy Thursday mean? A Catholic priest will fill us in right after the break. You're watching Our News.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamika.
Welcome back to Our News. It's time to see how the forecast is shaping up for your holiday weekend. Greg Thompson, he's back with the extended weather report. Greg?
Thanks, Candino. Welcome back, everybody, for our second look at weather. That ridge of high pressure that's been dominating our weather is starting to back out towards the east. That's keeping us in that southeasterly flow, bringing in some Atlantic moisture across the area. Mid to upper level disturbance moving across the eastern Gulf of Florida will help to trigger some showers and some isolated thunderstorms tonight through tomorrow. So we're looking at some showers in the forecast for your Good Friday, Easter Friday, and that disturbance will continue to pull out towards the east. Frontal boundary should side towards central Florida, but it should not get in here. But the close proximity of that front as well as the upper level disturbance will help to trigger some showers tomorrow and possibly even into Saturday. Boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight to tomorrow. Winds will be out of the southeast at 10 to 15 knots. Seas 2 to 4 feet over the ocean, but up to 6 feet in some swells. So we have a caution flag posted. High tide will be at 7:04 tonight. For the central and southeastern islands, an advisory in place for you guys down there due to the swells. East to southeast winds 15 to 20 knots. They will be gusting at times. Your seas will be running 4 to 6 feet over the ocean and up to 8 feet in some swells. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through next Thursday. Showers in the forecast for your Good Friday holiday. Make sure you be safe. Back to you, Candino.
All right, thanks a lot, Greg. We are on the road to Easter. The Feast of the Last Supper is celebrated on Holy Thursday, also known as Maundy Thursday. Through the breaking of bread and sometimes the washing of feet, Catholics recognize the establishment of the Holy Eucharist and Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples. And if you didn't know before, St. Joseph's Church pastor, Monsignor Alfred Culmer, explains how Holy Thursday got its name.
Sometimes Holy Thursday is called Maundy Thursday, which comes from the Latin mandatum, which means a commandment. Jesus says, I give you a new commandment. And then through the washing of the feet, that becomes the example of the Christian life to follow in his way.
So what exactly is the mandate?
The commandment is to love one another as I have loved you. So that's the mandatum.
Well, be sure to stay tuned into our news this weekend for all the latest, and we'll be telling you more about the holy days on the Christian calendar, the Trideum. Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Candino Knowles. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Until then, have a wonderful evening.